In the year 1513, a former civil servant found himself alone in a chilly farmhouse just outside Florence. His name was Niccolo Machiavelli. He had endured torture 6 times, suspended by his wrists until his shoulders nearly dislocated. They sought a confession, but he remained silent. When he was finally released, impoverished and broken, he did not plead for mercy. Instead, he picked up a pen and wrote down the truths about power. The truths that are rarely spoken. Not the polite rules, but the hidden ones. He observed that it is often safer to be feared than loved, that a prudent man never reveals his entire strategy, that a single act of cruelty, executed swiftly, is less harmful than a kindness extended too long. His book was so candid about human nature that it was banned for centuries. The church labeled it as devil's work. Kings read it covertly and denied owning a copy. Here's the seldom acknowledged secret. Those we deem untouchable are not merely fortunate or talented. They adhere to a set of harsh truths that society teaches us to ignore, for these truths are unsettling. This is the story of those truths, their origins, their effectiveness, and the disturbing reason why the powerful keep them hidden. Transition or open loop. The first of these truths is not about strength. It begins with a question that has troubled empires, cults, and even quiet office betrayals for over 5 centuries. The question nobody asks out loud. This frames the central mystery in psychological terms and personalizes it. The viewer is informed that the answer is uncomfortable, prompting them to stay to understand more about themselves. Visual/audio. Slow montage. A crowded subway car with faces blurred from focus. A chessboard mid-game with one king in the process of falling. A handshake filmed in close-up, creating an intimate feel. A softly ticking clock. Music tightens to a single repeating note. Quick flash cuts of historical portraits, then return to black. Voiceover. What makes some people walk through life seemingly unscathed? They face betrayal and ascend further. They endure attacks but somehow win over the crowd. Even those who dislike them still respect them. Those who love them never fully control them. We comfort ourselves by attributing their success to charm, wealth, or genetics. That's the comforting falsehood. The darker truth is that untouchable people grasp something about human nature that most refuse to accept. They understand how fear spreads through a crowd. They know that loyalty is leased, never owned. They see that the person smiling at you is also evaluating you. And here's the part that stings. These truths are not secret because they are locked away in ancient vaults. They remain secret because we conceal them from ourselves. We'd rather feel safe than face reality. So ask yourself one question before continuing. When wronged, do you seek justice, or do you wish to eliminate their power over you entirely? Most cannot answer truthfully. The untouchable already have. Transition or open loop. To truly grasp how these people think, you must travel back to a world where a single misstep didn't just cost you a position, it cost you your life. A world where trust could kill you. By setting a concrete, dangerous historical backdrop, the stakes feel life and death, making the psychological lessons earned rather than abstract. Renaissance Italy portrayed in candlelight, maps of warring city-states, a goblet of wine, a hand hesitating over it, silhouettes moving behind curtains, distant church bells, strings build slow tension, a poison ring clicks open in close-up. Voiceover. Renaissance Italy was a land of contrasts. A place of breathtaking beauty with marble palaces, painted ceilings, and music drifting over canals. Yet beneath this splendor, it was a slaughterhouse with good manners. Florence, Milan, Venice, Rome. Each city governed by families who grinned at dinner and plotted murder by dawn. The Borgias were notorious for poisoning guests. The Medici bought popes. A nobleman might invite his rival to a wedding, only to have him killed before the second course. In this world, trust was not a virtue. It was a liability someone would eventually exploit. A friend today could be bribed tomorrow. The man holding your secret held your life. Machiavelli observed all of this. As a diplomat, he entered rooms filled with deceivers, tasked with reading their faces. He witnessed princes fall. In a single afternoon, simply because they trusted the wrong smile. He saw merciless men endure for decades. Gradually, he realized something that still unsettles people today. The men who lasted weren't the most moral. They were the ones who never mistook how the world should be for how it actually is. Machiavelli believed he was merely learning the rules of his tumultuous era. Unbeknownst to him, he was uncovering something much older, a flaw in human nature itself. The first indication of it appears when someone tests how far they can go. The first test. This reveals the universal mechanism behind all power, the boundary test. By presenting it as timeless and observable in daily life, viewers recognize it. In their own relationships, making the lesson personal and urgent. Visual/audio. Close-up of a child's hand reaching slowly for a forbidden object, with eyes flicking up to watch the reaction. Cut to a wolf pack circling, one stepping forward. A boardroom where one person leans back while others lean in. A single drop of water impacts a still surface, creating ripples. Low pulse beneath strings. Camera lingers uncomfortably on watchful eyes. Voiceover. Observe a child in a room with a parent. The child reaches for something they were told not to touch, but they don't grab it. They reach slowly, keeping their eyes on your face, not the object. This is the first test, older than language, money, or any crown. Every relationship, every group, every empire begins with a silent question. How much can I get away with? Machiavelli witnessed adults in power play this out. A new leader takes a city, and everyone waits. The citizens, neighboring rulers, to see one thing. Will he flinch? If he punishes the first betrayal swiftly and harshly, the testing ceases. The unspoken message is clear. This one cannot be pushed. But if he hesitates or forgives to appear kind, the testing accelerates. Each evasion of consequence teaches others that the door is open. This is the flaw in human nature he uncovered. We don't respect what is good. We respect what withstands. We test every boundary in our lives, not out of malice, but because we're driven to find the edge. And when no edge exists, we keep walking until we fall, or until we rule. The untouchable understand this instinctively. They know the first. Test is never about the small breach, the borrowed money that isn't repaid, the meeting from which you were excluded, the joke at your expense. Those aren't the crimes. They're the questions. Your response teaches everyone around you how to treat you for years to come. Transition/. Yet, knowing you're being tested is merely part of it. The truly dangerous know something even colder. How to turn the response to that first test into a formidable weapon. And the next truth is one most spend their lives misunderstanding: the lie we tell about kindness. This challenges a core moral belief held by the viewer, creating cognitive tension. By suggesting that kindness can be deceptive, it compels the viewer to contemplate or adjust their worldview. A hand offers a coin to a beggar, initially filmed warmly, then the frame gradually desaturates. A dog being fed scraps under a table. A king's open palm transforms into an empty one. Soft light morphs into shadow. A music box melody plays sweetly before slowing and distorting. Close-up of a smile that fails to reach the eyes. Voiceover. We are taught that kindness is a form of strength, that generosity will be reciprocated, that if you give enough, people will love and protect you. Machiavelli observed how this belief often led to men's downfall. He noticed a harsh truth about generosity. The first gift is seen as a gift. By the 10th, it becomes an expectation. Give freely for long enough, and people stop, viewing it as kindness. They perceive it as their entitlement. The day you cease, you're not remembered as generous. You're resented as cruel. This is the trap of being overly good. A ruler who spends lavishly to be adored must continue spending or lose everything. A person who always says yes teaches others that their no holds no weight. Kindness intended to secure loyalty, instead, breeds contempt. Machiavelli wrote that a wise leader does not fear a reputation for harshness if it preserves order, as mercy stretched too thin leads to chaos. And chaos harms more than one firm decision ever could. Here's the stinging truth. Endless kindness often isn't love. It's fear masked as friendliness. Fear of being disliked. Fear of conflict. We label ourselves generous when we're simply too afraid to uphold boundaries. The untouchable offer kindness thoughtfully, never impulsively. Their warmth is a choice, not a weakness. And because their goodwill can be retracted, it holds value. A gift that cannot be lost is never cherished. Transition or open loop. If kindness can be a trap and cruelty a tool, then everything hinges on one daunting skill: the ability to decide with cold precision when to employ each. And that is where Machiavelli wrote the phrase that turned his name into a byword for cunning, the sentence that became a curse. This reveals the most famous and misunderstood concept linked to Machiavelli's name. By clarifying this misconception, viewers are rewarded and encouraged to re-examine what they thought they knew. An ink-stained quill presses hard into aged parchment, the nib splitting slightly. Candlelight flickers across a single inscribed line. Cut to 2. Faces side by side. One open and adoring, the other cold and watchful. A throne viewed from behind, the figure upon it unreadable. The strings drop to a sustained low note. A clock ticks slowly and deliberately. Voiceover. He penned the question that has shadowed him for 5 centuries. Is it better to be loved or feared? Most believe they know his answer, assuming he favored cruelty. They are mistaken. His response was colder and more truthful. He stated it, his ideal to be both loved and feared, though the two are hard to achieve simultaneously. If a choice must be made, he argued, it is safer to be feared. I elaborated with a stark observation on human nature. Love, he noted, is bound by a chain of obligation, easily broken when convenient. But fear is tethered by the dread of punishment, a chain that does not break easily. In plain terms, people will betray those. They love if betrayal is advantageous. but they will not betray someone they fear when the cost is significant. Love relies on the other's character, whereas fear depends on your own. This sentence sullied his name, transforming it into an insult. For centuries, being Machiavellian implied monstrous behavior. Yet, reading further, a different image emerges. He cautioned that a leader must never be hated. Feared, yes. Hated, no. Because fear maintains order, but hatred incites rebellion. The distinction between the two is clear. Take a man's wealth. He may eventually forgive. Take his dignity, his family, his sense of worth, and he may harbor a lifetime of vengeance. The untouchable grasp this fully. They embrace being feared, but are cautious never to be despised. Transition or open loop. Fear's effectiveness stems from something deeper than threats. It's about what people perceive when they look at you versus what truly lies beneath. The mask and the face. This segment introduces perception management, the disparity between image and reality, making viewers skeptical of every confident person they encounter, which is both unsettling and captivating. A theatrical mask held to a face, slowly lowered to reveal an almost identical expression beneath. A portrait of a smiling nobleman, the camera zooming in until the brushstrokes resemble cracks. Two hands clasping in greeting, one concealing a hidden blade. A mirror, reflecting a confident stance. Then the reflection alone maintaining it while the real figure slumps. The score turns silky, deceptively smooth. Voiceover. Machiavelli observed that ordinary people judge primarily by appearances. They see only the surface and lack the time or access to uncover what's beneath. Thus, a leader who masters appearances controls how they are judged. He wrote that a prince must seem merciful, faithful, honest, and devout, and should truly be these things whenever possible. But he must also be prepared to change course the moment survival requires it. This notion disturbs many. He was not advocating for deceit in all matters, but rather asserting that projected image serves as a tool, as impactful as any weapon. The world doesn't react to who you are. It reacts to who it believes you to be. The untouchable operate within this chasm. They never reveal effort, doubt, or fear. They understand that calmness is a performance that becomes reality once others believe it. A man portrayed as unshakable is treated as such, and being treated that way gradually makes him so. But here's the trap for the rest of us. We confuse honesty with revealing everything. We mistake transparency for virtue, inadvertently providing adversaries with a precise map of our vulnerabilities. The mask is not always deceit. Sometimes it is the discipline not to bleed in front of those counting your wounds. Transition or open loop. Yet, a mask alone falls short. The most formidable people have mastered wielding two distinct natures, shifting between them at will, an ability that even left Machiavelli himself unsettled. The lion and the fox. This section presents Machiavelli's most practical dual nature framework, offering viewers a concrete model they can apply. It feels like receiving a secret tool, fulfilling earlier promises, visual/audio. A lion stands motionless in golden light, muscles tense, perfectly still. A fox slips through shadows, eyes darting, scanning exits. Images of the lion and fox intercut at an increasing pace until they merge. A chessboard where one hand moves a piece with decisive force, then another moves one with quiet cunning. The score weaves two themes, one heavy and martial, the other light and clever. Machiavelli wrote that a leader must know how to fight in two ways. The first is by law, the way of men. The second is by force, the way of beasts. And since the way of men is often insufficient, he must master the way of beasts, not just any beast. Two in particular, he must embody the lion to deter the wolves and the fox to recognize traps. The lion symbolizes power, presence, and the readiness to strike. But a lion alone is easily ensnared, striding proudly into pits. The fox detects these traps. Yet a fox alone is toothless, vulnerable when cunning fails. The peril lies in being solely one. The pure lion is courageous, yet naive, all strength without insight, falling prey to schemers who merely wait. The pure fox is witty, yet weak, full of plans he cannot enforce until someone stronger ends the game. The untouchable encompass both. They wield the strength to be feared and the awareness to never be cornered. They discern when a situation demands a bold show of force and when to exercise patience, misdirection, and quietly read another's intentions. This makes them so challenging to defeat. Challenge their strength, and they respond with cunning. Outwit their cunning, and they retaliate with force. They evade confinement to a single form. Here's what many fail to grasp. These natures are not contradictions. They are tools, chosen and wielded as needed. The mistake is believing one must consistently embody a single identity. The free person selects their nature as a craftsman chooses their instrument. Transition or open loop. But even the lion and the fox yield to a force greater than both. A force Machiavelli referred to by an ancient and perilous name. How a person manages that force determines their ultimate fate. Fortune, the woman and the flood. This section addresses Machiavelli's engagement with luck and fate, the force beyond strategy. It reframes the viewer's relationship with control, making the lesson feel personal and urgent. Visual/audio. A river rises in slow motion, consuming fields and breaching wooden barriers. Then the same river, channeled by stone embankments, flowing obediently. A blindfolded figure turns a great wheel, fortunes rising and falling on its rim. A man stands unflinching in a storm. The score swells with a vast, indifferent force, akin to weather that doesn't care who lives. Machiavelli referred to it as fortuna. Fortune, the ancient Roman goddess of chance, of luck, forces beyond any man's command. His honesty was cutting. He conceded that perhaps half of what happens to us is governed by fortune, forces beyond our control, yet only half. The other half, he claimed, belongs to us. Our will, our preparation, our resolve. He likened fortune to a violent river. When it floods, it drowns everything, demolishes homes, and devastates the land. None can resist its fury in the moment, but that doesn't render men helpless. In tranquil times, the wise build embankments and channels, digging dikes to withstand the rising waters. The unprepared are swept away by the same flood that the prepared withstand. Fortune impacts both, but only one is ready. This is the harsh mercy at the heart of his philosophy. You cannot dictate all that comes your way, but you can control whether you stand firm or fall. When it arrives, he penned a line that his critics could never forgive. Fortune, he declared, is a woman. She favors the bold, the young, those who seize rather than wait. He meant it as his era did, harshly and without kindness. But beneath the cruelty lay a colder truth. Chance favors those who act, abandoning those who hesitate at the precipice, hoping the world will be gentle. The untouchable do not pray for good fortune. They prepare for misfortune. They presuppose the flood's inevitability, for it always comes. And when the river finally breaches its banks, they are the ones left standing on the embankment they wisely built while others reveled in the calm. Transition or open loop. Yet, there remains one last truth in Machiavelli's work, the one he buried deepest. This truth determines whether you become a monster or free. The final truth. This segment offers the philosophical payoff and moral reckoning, resolving the tension built throughout the film and delivering a memorable closing thought. Visual/audio. The exiled Machiavelli sits at his writing desk, candles casting flickering shadows, dressed in worn robes, alone. The candle gutters. His face, lined and weary, turns directly toward the camera for the first time. Slowly, the screen fades to a single point of light. Then black. Here's what centuries of derision missed. Machiavelli was not a powerful man. He wrote these lessons after arrest, torture, and exile. He was a broken servant of a republic that no longer desired him, observing from the sidelines. As lesser men governed poorly, he didn't write the rules of power because he possessed it. He wrote them because he had lost it and finally saw it clearly. His true message wasn't to revel in cruelty for its own sake. It was simpler and darker. See the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. For the man who guides his actions by how things should be will be undone by those who engage with how things are. That's the dagger at the core of his work. Innocence is a luxury secured by another's vigilance. The naive survive because the watchful guard the gates. He wasn't teaching you to become a monster. He was teaching you to cease being prey, transition or open loop. And so the question lands where it always does, on you. The question's direct address that converts emotional intensity into comments and channel loyalty, closing every open loop with a single confrontation. Visual/audio. Black screen. A single line of candlelight flickers and dies. Silence, followed by the faint scratch of a quill. Voiceover. Strip away the centuries. Strip away the insult his name became. Ask yourself the only thing that matters. If betrayal were profitable, and no one would ever know, would the people around you remain loyal? Or are you merely hoping never to find out? But what would you choose? To be loved or feared? Tell me in the comments. Be honest. Your answer reveals more than you think. If you seek the truths others avoid, the ones whispered in exile and buried under centuries of fear, then follow. The next story delves deeper into the dark. YouTube title: The Machiavelli Lesson That Sounds Evil Until You Understand. Its YouTube description: they turned his name into a synonym for evil, but Machiavelli wasn't teaching cruelty, he was teaching survival. Written in exile after torture and ruin, his words reveal the hidden machinery of power, fear, perception, and fate. This is the lesson most people are too comfortable to understand. Chapters 0, Intro 13, 30, The Mask and the Face, 15, 45, The Lion and the Fox, 18, 0 Fortune, The Woman and the Flood, 20, 15, The Final Truth, 21, 30, The Question. If you seek the truths most people avoid, follow. The next story goes deeper. YouTube tags: Machiavelli, The Prince, Power Psychology, Dark Psychology, Fear versus Love, Machiavellian, Philosophy, Stoicism, Human Nature, Strategy, Fortune, and Fate, Leadership, Manipulation, Political Philosophy, Self-Mastery, Shorts hooks. 1. People betray those they love the moment it pays. 2. Innocence is a luxury secured by another's vigilance. 3. He didn't write power's rules because he held it. He lost it. 4. The naive survive because the watchful guard the gates. 5. Would they remain loyal if betrayal were free?